What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Joel Diaz. Joel Diaz is receiving death threats over Yildurim's loss to Canelo. Wow. Joel Diaz, trainer for Turkey star Anvi Yildurim, is getting bombarded with threats over his boxer's crushing defeat at the hands of the WBC and WBA super middleweight champion Saul Canelo Alvarez, which took place February 27th. Yildurim, who had the entire country of Turkey behind him, was dominated from the start of the contest, with Diaz stopping the fight after 3 rounds to prevent Yildurim from taking further punishment. Since that contest took place, Turkish fans have attacked Diaz with the idea that he was paid off by Canelo's team to sabotage Yildurim's camp. And this is what Joel said. He said, "There are messages that I have from people in Turkey where they are telling me that they are going to kill me because I sold out Yildurim, that instead of improving him, I made him worse. Everything I did was worse. In fact, they are asking me how much money did Canelo pay me for me stopping the fight. They say, you're Mexican, Canelo is Mexican, and we know he paid you a few $1 million to do that to Yildurim." Wow. He says, "I'm not selling myself so they can hurt a fighter. If the boxer wins and looks good, I win and I look good. So I wanted my fighter to shine. So people can say, what a fight this bastard gave, and Joel trained him. But it is not my fault that the boxer did not pay attention to my instructions because he did not do anything that we worked on in training camp. Yildurim is taking the loss so hard he does not want to return to Turkey." Wow. Thinking that he has dishonored his country. He feels that he has disappointed his homeland and does not want to go back to Turkey. He cried in the bathroom and said nothing, Diaz said. Wow. Let me counterpunch. Okay. Joel Diaz is a good trainer. He is the former trainer of Timothy Bradley. And if you guys can remember, Timothy Bradley received death threats after Manny Pacquiao lost a decision to him back in their first fight. Okay. And Joel Diaz was not the actual guy that was threatened, but Timothy Bradley himself. So he was behind it. So I don't think he's any stranger to this. You know, he's always been an aggressive trainer. And looking at all this, man, it's ridiculous. Let me tell you why. First of all, I agree with Joel Diaz. He never did anything to show me that he wanted to win. Okay, the things that Yildurim was doing was he was throwing the jab mostly. He wasn't getting off. He wasn't being first. He was getting countered every step of the way from round 1. Canelo Alvarez was hitting him at will, okay, with those looping feint shots he was catching Yildurim with, and that straight right really sealed the deal, okay? We've seen enough deaths, okay, in the last couple years and close calls, okay, because, you know, we also have like your Adonis Stevenson and Zab Judah. Those guys were close calls, okay? The way he was taking a beating by Canelo, why would you want that to remain? Joel did him a favor because there was no way in hell he was going to win that fight. He wasn't going to win. If you look back at that fight, you see he had mediocre attack. Again, just with the jab. He wasn't even setting anything up. It was just like it was a glorified sparring match. But he was getting beat up. So, you know, I don't know what they mean by that. I can tell you this, looking at the Pac-Man situation with the death threats to Timothy Bradley. Now this with the Turkish fans. Fans can be crazy. Okay. Look, I don't know what they expect. I guess people, because he stopped the fight, I guess they thought that, oh, he stopped it and you paid a few $1 million. So if that was the case, so if he took a few $1 million to sell out Yildurim, what about the knockdown? If that's the case, Yildurim had to be in on it. because he was taking a whooping. You know what I mean? He was the one in there, not Joel Diaz. So how are you just going to blame Diaz? You know, and it seems like people always want to blame somebody else for the fighter's mistake. I noticed that. And it's sad. Okay, it's like, well, they're saying, oh, well, he was paid off and it was a sabotage in the camp. That shit sounds like Deontay Wilder. It sounds like the fans of Deontay Wilder. So I hope those guys aren't Wilder fans and they're just picking up that cloth, okay? And because you got Joel Diaz because he's Mexican, he had to pay off. Canelo paid him off. What? Canelo paid him a few $1 million so he can beat up his fighter. Because that's all we saw. Look how retarded that sounds. Oh, yeah, you sabotaged the camp. You didn't make him better. You made him worse. Okay, well, what was he before Joel Diaz got a hold of him? He was already beaten before that. These guys act like this guy was an undefeated fighter that was a huge prodigy and prospect from Turkey. No, he was just a regular person and a regular fighter that was a mandatory. And in fact, Canelo got all type of slack just for taking the damn fight when he wanted to fight him in the first place. A lot of people wondered, who the hell is this guy? So these fans, man, really, they need to chill out because they really don't know the ins and outs. They don't appreciate the skill that Canelo has, you know. And then you got to ask yourself, you know, these guys is probably just a group of guys that were drunk or something and just decided to send death threats, which honestly, I think that takes a lot of effort for you to actually fill in a letter or email or whatever and saying you're going to do this and do that, which I think that'd be stupid if you put an email because they can find out who you are. But, you know, I just think that Joel Diaz receiving death threats, that's way too much for a guy that really didn't have a chance of hell of winning anyway. You know, he needs to step his game up or just really accept the fact that he's not really that good. Okay? Because, again, if you look at Anvi Yildurim's record, you know, he got beat by Darrell, he got beat by Canelo, and he got beat by Chris Eubank Jr. So, I mean, those dudes, even, okay, Darrell and Jr., Eubank Jr., now, and Jr., Eubank Jr., those guys aren't the cream of the crop. So if they're not the cream of the crop, what do you think the cream of the crop will do? He's going to go in there and do exactly what Canelo did. Beat the brakes off of him. And, you know, they did him a favor. He looked no different from, you know, Angulo, right? El Perro Angulo. He looked no different from that. James Kirkland, he was just another opponent in there. So I think these fans, they really need to back their fighter by giving their fighter encouragement instead of kick and stomp and throw the trainer under the bus. That's what they should do. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Turkish fans giving Joel Diaz death threats. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.